Hey everyone, welcome to our second lecture for week 13. This lecture will cover logical fallacies, which I think this is probably one of my favorite lectures that I ever give in Com 114. Unfortunately, it's not the same because we're online, but I'm going to try to do my very best. Fallacies! Oh, these they just make my day because they're so cringy and they're awesome all at the same time. Basically, logical fallacies are when you try to persuade someone, but in a way that is logically fallacious. It's not consistent, and there's different kinds of ways you can do it. There are so many logical fallacies out there that I could go through, but I have identified ones that your book talks about, and I thought that I would go through those specifically. Do or do not. There is no try. False dichotomy presented you with. I did. Dichotomy. I think that's what I said. Anyway, that's a nice one right there. That's an example. I don't think your book talks about that one, but the ones that they do, I'm going to just give you some examples. So slippery slope is the first one. And basically it is when you say one action will lead to a series of sequential actions that ends in something catastrophic. And I have an example video for you. Unfortunately, due to copyright, I don't think I'm allowed to show these. And so what I have done is, instead of showing them myself, you will notice in our YouTube channel, if you have navigate yourself to the main page of our wonderful channel, you will notice that in the playlist, the created playlist section, or you can go to playlists here, either one, you'll notice I've created a logical fallacies example playlist, and it includes all the videos that I am now currently showing in here. So you'll notice I include 2 DirecTV videos. These are for the slippery slope one, and then this one is for false dilemma, hasty generalization. That one is correlation does not equal causation. You get the idea. So you can look through these on your own time. So I'm just going to very, very briefly, quickly go through these, and I wish that we could all react to these at the same time. But basically, once I've gone through all these, just pause the video, watch them, kind of enjoy them, or pause them as I go through each one. So like right now, you can watch the slippery slope ones, and then once you have done that, come back and go to the next one. All right, and those are hilarious ones. Everything just happens together. Then the second one is a false dilemma. And basically, it's the idea that it's incorrectly posing that only 2 possible choices can exist for someone, but in reality, there are multiple choices that can coexist. So there's an example from a TV show that I gave you in the YouTube channel, so you can watch that and kind of get this idea. That is an example of false dilemma, and I love it. It's hilarious. Basically, you're a good dad or you're a bad dad. That's it. Then there's another one called hasty generalization. It's when you make a broad assumption based on limited cases, examples, or evidence. I think to show this, it's just worth watching this one. This is cringy, especially since this... When was this one made? I think it was made like several years ago, this commercial. It's cringy, but watch it. I think you'll get an idea for hasty generalization. So pause it and come back. Alrighty. Yeah, it's cringy. It's bad. It's it's bad. But basically, it's the idea, guys love bacon, right? Guys just love bacon. So based on limited case examples, you can now, make this generalization that if you have bacon, ladies, you can get a guy. That's basically the idea. And all the guys are like, yeah, totally, right? Because we're that stupid. No, absolutely not. Correlation versus causation is another one. It's the idea that 2 events occurring together are taken to have an established cause and effect relationship. I've shown an example from the TV show Friends. This is priceless. You can watch the interaction. Yeah, come back when you've done. All right, super funny, real good. Friends has so many moments that are filled with logical fallacies. The next one is ad hominem, which is probably one you just probably all know really well. And it's when someone personally attacks another person who supports the opposing viewpoint rather than attacking the argument or issue itself. boy, and I think the first thing we all think about is just politics. Doesn't matter which side you're thinking about, everyone does this to each other in politics. It's a vicious game, and I thought I would pull up an ad from a previous campaign that I thought was hilarious and kind of illustrates this idea of an ad hominem, so you can look at that one as well. All right, an appeal to authority is the next one, and it's this idea that you build a persuasive case by providing exclusively testimonial support from experts and authorities. So there was a time last year when some celebrities were brought together and basically encouraged people around the world to go and vote in the United States. Not around the world. In the United States, they encouraged people to go vote. And this was a commercial that was made in response to it. And it really illustrates this idea of like, oh yeah, I should vote because Tom Cruise says I should. No, Tom Cruise is a celebrity. Yes, he knows that it's your civic duty to vote, but you cannot base an entire logical argument based off what Tom Cruise says, right? And you might be wondering, well, how's that different than some of the oral citations we use, right? We're supposed to use credible sources, experts and authorities, right? The logical fallacy is when you are just purely using, like, Tom Cruise or any other person you might think about. And usually it's someone who doesn't necessarily have the authority to speak into that issue, or they're not necessarily as credible. So it's an appeal to an authority figure to build your entire case off of it. If you're using a lot of experts, if you're using a lot of other sources, then you're avoiding this fallacy entirely. So go watch this one. This is pretty great. And finally, your book talks about faulty analogy, which it assumes that because two things are alike in one or more respects, they are necessarily alike in some other respect. And this commercial does a great job kind of highlighting how this guy associates what it would be like if he could have ice cream one day. And it makes this faulty analogy to the idea that he's waiting to buy the perfect car, which is so stupid, and yet I don't know how this got into existence. It's cringy. But the reason why logical fallacies are cringy is because they violate some sort of logical flow to something, right? You can't compare ice cream to buying a car. It's not the same thing, right? So that's an example. Go watch this one. It's the last one in the playlist, and I think you'll enjoy it. All right, so now you've watched some very fun commercials that show logical fallacies, and now this again is a review of the week. At this point, you've watched you've reviewed chapter 11. You've watched that persuasive appeals lecture I gave you. You've hopefully started to engage with the persuasive appeals discussion board. Now you've just finished the persuasive fallacies lecture. What's next to do is to go and engage with your persuasive fallacies discussion board. Note, these are two different discussion boards. If you have any questions about it, they're different. And to illustrate that, I've come back to the week 13 board. You'll see in the weekly checklist, I've reposted the exact same things. You'll notice that after you finish your short lecture on logical fallacies, which you just have, now there's this opportunity to practice what you've done, and this will count for attendance. You'll note that it has the exact same structure as the last one. There's an initial post that you have to have done by this Wednesday, by April 8th, 11:59 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and then you will respond to a peer, the exact same format as the last one. So keep in mind, you have two discussion boards that you need to keep in contact with. You might think, that's a lot to do. It really isn't, actually. It really isn't. It might seem like it's a lot, but it's not. Here's why. You're literally going to do what we did in the first one. You know how this was the logical appeals discussion board? Well, here's the second one. From this list, you're going to pick a logical fallacy, one of the ones that we just talked about. Slippery slope, false dilemma, hasty generalization. You can review the videos for examples, but pick one of these fallacies. And then I want you to pick a topic, and these are basically echoing the ones that we just did up here for the appeals discussion board. Hot dogs, superheroes, plastic bags, COVID-19, Star Wars, pick one. And then what I want you to do is keep your choice of logical fallacy a secret. Keep it secret. Keep it safe, as Gandalf would say to Frodo in Lord of the Rings. Keep it secret, keep it safe, and create your own thread. You're going to do the exact same thing. I'm going to open up a new tab for this discussion board. You'll notice here that there are no threads. You are going to create a thread just like you did last time. What I want you to do for this one is just pick your don't pick your logical fallacy. That's not what we do. Pick your topic. So like we did here, like in the last one I picked the question about Cap and Batman. I'm just going to pick superheroes. Example post. Superheroes. And then what I might do is create a cool response. Using your topic idea, create an exaggerated example argument that utilizes your fallacy in your topic scenario. For example, if I choose an ad hominem, and remember, you wouldn't be telling anyone, you would just have this to yourself. If I was thinking of an ad hominem attack as my logical fallacy, and say I chose climate change as my topic, I might give this example. Al Gore has no right to talk about climate change because he owns several houses and his car emits tons of pollution into the atmosphere. Woo! That is an ad hominem attack if I ever say so myself. The goal is to post something that is exaggerated and clearly fallacious so that your peers can guess what that logical fallacy is. So you should post it, create an example like this. In fact, I'll just modify the example so you can kind of see it. Let's say I chose climate change instead. Climate change. And say I post this example. Al Gore has no right to talk about climate change because he owns several houses and a car emits tons of pollution in the atmosphere. Whew! Okay. I'm going to submit that, and then you'll see that it creates a post. You will then be able to click on it, just like you would, and you'll see this example. Remember, at this point, if you are a peer, you are replying to this, you won't know what this is. So you read this and you're like, what is this? This sure does sound like an ad hominem attack. Ad hominem attack. You're going to respond. And I've made it clear. You want to come back and you want to guess it. You want to clearly state what the fallacy is, and then engage with it a little bit. What I want you to do is then, going back to this one, respond to your peer's thread, identify the logical fallacy, and offer a 2 to 3 minute sentence, I should say, 2 to 3 sentence response. I'll fix that. Saying how you might modify the statement so it isn't fallacious. So you might come back and say, I don't know. I'll create an example after this. I might have to think about it a little bit, but create basically say this is an ad hominem attack, and then you create another one. You would give a better example of how to say this without committing a logical fallacy. So it's the same format. You want to create, and you would submit that. So you want to create a post, you want to create a thread by Wednesday, just like this one. So you're creating 2 threads by Wednesday. You're creating a thread, and then you are responding to a peer's thread by Friday. Exact same format, the exact same way. They're just 2 different contexts. One, we're dealing with logical appeals. One, we're dealing with logical fallacies. This way, you kind of get to engage with your peers a little bit more, have some fun, and then you can also practice these concepts, which I think will help you in your understanding of the concepts. I know that this is the last lecture of the week, so I'm just going to return to our slides here just to talk about that last thing that you need to do this week. You need to contact your groups, like I mentioned in our Welcome to Week 13 video. Contact your groups via email, WhatsApp. Find some online measure that everyone could probably interact with. Texting might not necessarily work if you're in a different country right now. Contact your group members. Meet for an hour this week online. Find a time to meet, whether it's WebEx, whether it's Zoom or Skype. Find some way to do it. You can use Google Docs to upload the group briefing document there. You can edit it together, but basically work on it together as a group. Apply my comments to your second group briefing. All of you should have my comments from your first group briefing, so talk about those as a group together, put those together, and turn in your second group briefing, which will help you get ready for the final presentation, which will be the last week. And I will give you a video in the future that kind of shows you how you're going to maybe record yourselves and do it, but use this week to kind of reconnect with your peers in some way again. Find a time and submit this by the end of the week, Saturday, April 11th by 11:59 p.m. That's all for this week. This week is it is a little bit more. It might feel like it's a little bit more, but really you just have the 2 short lectures, which you finished at this point, and you have you will have started, hopefully, your discussion boards on time. Remember, you have your initial threads that you post by Wednesday, and then you respond to your peers for each of those respective boards. So, just so you don't get confused, there's one for logical appeals, right? I showed you this in the last video. And there's one board for fallacies. So 2 different discussion boards. Don't get confused by those. If you have any questions, please don't hesitate to let me know. I'm going to upload the videos now because while I'm recording, it's Sunday, so you'll have this. Let me know if you have any questions, y'all. Keep up the good work.